So first, before I begin, I'm from Infineon, which is different from Infinicon, which the previous speaker was from. So two names which are quite similar. So I thought I would make that distinction. So Infineon is a top 10 semiconductor IDM. And we have recently entered the top 10 of the semicon industry post our successful acquisition of Cypress Semiconductor. We will be close to about 10 billion euros in annual revenues, 50,000 employees worldwide, and a substantial portion of those are in R&D. Besides that, we are a manufacturing-rich company. We believe manufacturing is a key differentiator. So we have fabs also all over the world. Today, I'm privileged to be here at SSIA to talk about the impact of digitalization and AI on the workforce of the future. My presentation will be quite focused on our Singapore site and what are some of the initiatives we have been doing over the years, as well as what do we plan to do in the future. Before I begin, I'd like to offer a special thanks to Viseng as well as Jerome Chia, who are on the board of SSIA, for having me at this distinguished forum. So with that, let me begin with a short video.
We live in a world that continuously reinvents itself. A world with visionary ideas, inspiring concepts, and smart answers to key questions of our time. How can we preserve our environment? How will our mobility needs be met in the future? How will we communicate? And how can we protect our data? Microelectronics gives answers to these questions. They are the link between the digital and the real world. Semiconductors from Infineon enable technologies to achieve more and consume less, while being accessible to everyone. Our values capture this mission. Commitment, innovation, partnership, performance. We make life easier, safer, and greener for a better future. Infineon, part of your life, part of tomorrow.
Okay, so thank you. That was our corporate video. It talks about our values as well as what is our key mission to make life easier, safer, greener. Before I begin the presentation, a short kind of quote from our CEO, which basically lays out how we see the changes which are happening all around us. We have been through several industrial revolutions. This is, this is the age of Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution. So it's not that the semiconductor industry and other associated industries have not been through change. They have been, but I think what is different this time is simply the pace of change. I think for all of us who have now been through COVID and the associated aftermath and the impact it's had on the way we work and the way we sort of collaborate with each other, as well as the way our children are learning, would realize that so much of change was compressed into such a short time frame, right? So it's actually the pace of change, which can be a bit daunting and sometimes even terrifying. So he talks a lot about this pace of change. The second very interesting aspect is he refers to the cross-disciplinary aspect of these technologies. So in the past, we had a lot of technological improvement, but it was quite narrowly focused within very, very siloed areas of the semiconductor industry. So for example, the industry has been jumping process nodes for a long time. We had Moore's law and we had other associated advances, and these are going back many, many years. But what we are seeing now is actually a confluence of different technologies from different aspects. There's a lot of change in software, there's a lot of change in hardware, robotics, automation, and so on. So our philosophy is that we need a cross-disciplinary approach, and we need to bring together all these technologies in order to create value. And last but not the least, we also have to take care of the reskilling as well as the future of our employees as we go about making these changes, right? So as I mentioned earlier, my presentation is focused quite strongly on our Singapore location. So Singapore is a site which has been with Infineon for 50 years. Actually, this year, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. So look at how we have gone through changes over the years in this site. beginning in the 1970s as Siemens Semiconductor, where it was a very, very low value add discrete manufacturing location, to how we slowly added IC manufacturing. In the 90s, several changes took place where, we went into more complex packages. We started doing a little bit of software, a little bit of more value-added activities in the plant, and so on. Early 2000s were when we actually helped, Singapore started to become a teacher. So it actually helped us set up, plants in other locations. We also established what are called corporate functions. These functions were at our corporate headquarters, but then we started establishing them in Singapore. To today, today we have a smart manufacturing setup in Singapore, which is a state-of-the-art setup. It's a lighthouse project. It's been mentioned in the World Economic Forum's list of 14 top plants anywhere in the world. So it's a it's an achievement which we are all extremely proud of. We are also home in Singapore to a design center, which is the only one of its kind in Asia, in the whole of Asia, including Japan. And it focuses on a lot of very complex designs from microcontrollers. It also does design enabling services. It focuses on power solutions, so on and so forth. So also a very, very big feather in our cap to have this design center. But we also have one of the few product lines which are headquartered outside of Germany. We have the entire sales, marketing, and distribution running out of Singapore for the whole region. And we also, a few years ago, established what we call a business analytics center of competence. This was to sort of introduce analytics into improving the efficiency, productivity, and the intelligence of almost all the functions in Singapore. So where are we today? Today we are on the cusp of further change. So we are now imbibing technologies around AI and machine learning. We are going to embed these into almost every function in Singapore. And then going into the late 2020s, you will begin to see actually job profiles and a lot of things changing in the way we do things out of our Singapore side. What happens after that? Going back to our tagline of making life easier, safer, greener, harping on that, going into the 2030s, jobs, we try to make jobs easy through the embodiment of these technologies. We will obviously make things more secure by absorption of a lot of cybersecurity and those kind of technologies, and we certainly make life greener and cleaner. We have a sustainability goal of achieving zero CO2 by 2030. And that's where we are sort of driving towards. So this slide actually, I hope, gives you a snapshot of how far we have come in the 50 years. But as the saying goes, you ain't seen nothing yet. We believe our best days are ahead of us in Singapore, and we are looking forward to the upcoming transformation. So what is unique about Singapore is also the strong sort of complementary role, the supportive role, and the encouraging role which the government is playing. In the last few months, especially as COVID has been prevalent, you have seen a lot of announcements in Singapore about the need to digitalize, the need to embed AI, the need to absorb new technologies and build know-how. And here, I'm showing you two pictures from, one from the Deputy Prime Minister and one from Minister Iswaran, where they've made statements either in Parliament or at trade shows about the need for Singapore to further drive change in order to build and sustain a competitive advantage. So as we build those capabilities in Singapore, at Infineon Singapore, we are strongly partnering with the Singapore government, and we are extremely proud of this partnership. So getting a little bit into the nuts and bolts of this transformation, you can actually see on this slide, we have something which we call the key enablers of AI and digital transformation. So these could be things all the way from artificial intelligence and machine learning to what we call big data. I think previous speakers have also alluded to this. When you run a factory, especially in the semicon industry, every single machine on that line generates a ton of data. And we are running these factories 24/7. So there's a lot of data which is generated. So this makes it an ideal hunting ground for application of big data technologies. Then you have obviously other areas like IoT and so on, which you can also apply as enabling digitalization technologies. What you see in the middle is actually what do we consider as digitalization in the Infineon context, right? So we are doing digitalization because at the end, we expect to create a higher value from this activity, right? So whether it is new business models which come out of this ongoing digitalization, or it creates increasing efficiencies and integration across the value chain, which then creates further efficiencies and so on, or if it is products and services we could digitalize us to serve our customers better. All of these are what we consider the value drivers of digitalization, because you don't do anything for its own sake, right? I mean, as the previous speakers have also alluded, every single thing obviously has to have a certain tangible outcome. Now, below is, kind of key functions we have at Singapore. So as I showed you on the previous journey of Infineon in Singapore, we have probably outside Germany, the only location which is a multi-domain location. What do I mean by that? We have operations functions because we have the smart factory in Singapore. We have the best design center, or the only design center in Asia. We also have the distribution center Asia and our supply chain and logistics running out of Singapore. And last but not the least, we have obviously sales and marketing activities. So if you look at all these interconnected activities for Infineon across the value chain, I will show you one example for each as to how we are actually pushing digitalization and AI. So first, looking at operations. So this is a topic which we've been talking about for a few years, but here I illustrate simply with some examples, right, which we've been doing in our factory. The first is actually something about automated lot on hold analysis. It's a tool, it's a proprietary tool in-house, which is called Aloha Plus. There's a real-time dispatch tool. There's predictive maintenance. As you know, predictive maintenance actually helps you to enhance operational cost and increases efficiency. Then you have what we call the yield enhancement analytics. So we have a lot of...
Yes. Your sound is a bit unstable. Maybe you keep to your position and don't move much so that the sound can remain more stable. Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
Okay, maybe one thing. Let me switch off my camera. Maybe that saves some bandwidth. Is this better now?
You can go ahead and try.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think, as you know, it's because it's not our preferred video conferencing tool, right? So maybe there's some issue there. So as I was saying, we are also focusing on the yield analytics models, and last but not the least, virtual metrology and collaboration. On the right side, you actually see what are some of these activities.
Hi, Rohit, we are losing you. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems better when you turn on the video.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, audience. Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah, I think it's better now, but we have to try it out first. Yeah.
Okay, I'll speak a little bit louder. Does it help?
Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead and we'll see whether it, okay.
So moving on from operations, here is an example from our design center in Singapore. So this is a product life cycle management suite. So as you know, all the way from the creation of a product to the creation of conceptualization, design, all the way to its production and sales, after sales support. This is something which integrates data processes and supporting tools. And here are some of the core capabilities which you can see on the right side. It allows you to do data management, process management, project management, technology documents for you. Also in real-time reporting and analytics. Now from our corporate supply chain activities in Singapore. 3 areas where we are using digitalization and AI. The first is in management of contracts. So we are using advanced analytics to consolidate the user management, order management, as well as the allocation management. This is to, as in our industry, that there is.
Hi, Rohit. Sorry for interrupting. I think it's better when you lean back a little bit. Maybe you are too close to the microphone, so the voice break.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, can we try out once again? Sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's better now. So you
Okay.
keep to this distance.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stay here. Okay, so then the second example I wanted to give was around supply chain planning. And over here as well, we are using this tool. We are using AI and machine learning examples. And then at the bottom of the page, you can see some. Going towards sales and marketing, here comes my next example. So for a company like Infineon, as I mentioned earlier, with about 10 billion euro in sales, we have estimated we are serving more than 100,000 customers worldwide. Our field application engineers, as well as our system application engineers, receive a lot of requests from customers from time to time, in fact, on a continuous basis. These could be pertaining to usage of our product in a particular way or some problem which the customer faced, and so on and so forth. So in the past, the process was pretty manual. The call would come in and then things would get logged, and then the FAE or the SAE would get back to the customer with a potential solution. Now what we have done is we have actually logged or created a history of all these previous customer requests and what were their solutions and the resolutions into something which we call an iSolar database, right? And then once we consolidated this into a database, that is by itself not enough. We actually then created what we call a chatbot interface on top. So now the new thing is that the customer comes in with either a problem or a question. Our field and system application engineers actually then engage with the chatbot, which is enabled by machine learning and AI. It has been trained on this entire database of past customer requests and past customer questions. So it is able to provide a much more intelligent and quick answer. So we have seen a significant improvement in terms of efficiency, in terms of get back time or check back time to the customer and so on. And this is another one of our applications of AI. All these were developed in Singapore, right? Besides these 4 examples, which I shared before, all the way from operations to sales and marketing, we also have a very ambitious plan of leveraging Singapore and building Singapore into a hub for artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, as you have also observed from the previous speakers' presentations, is a very broad term. What do we as Infineon mean by my terminology called AI? We actually have subdivided it into 7 categories. And these categories range from the relatively simple, which is robotic process automation, which talks about automation of tasks in a certain way, to all the way to what we call deep learning, which is, almost at the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. As you go around this circle, we will be building up capabilities and competencies in all these 7 unique areas going forward, right? We have already embarked on this. We have about 30 projects identified, and we will be executing not just these 30 projects, but indeed a lot more over the next 3 years in Singapore. Another unique aspect of Singapore, at least for Infineon, is its rich and diverse ecosystem. Now, what do we mean by ecosystem? Singapore is very unique in the sense that we have a complete ecosystem of startups, of small and medium enterprises, of other multinational corporations, of OSAT and C4 suppliers, and so on and so forth. So Infineon has decided to make a conscious effort to leverage this very strong and rich ecosystem of Singapore. The first thing is we have started to engage deeply with entrepreneurs and startups. So you can actually see on the top left of this slide, our CEO speaking at an event around artificial intelligence at SG Innovate. The aim is to sort of share what we are doing in the field of AI, but also to solicit ideas and get people to reach out to Infineon to collaborate. On the right side, at the top of the screen, you actually see what is called the Infineon Co-Innovation Space. This is a dedicated space in Singapore where we are hosting startups, which then work jointly with our engineers to co-create solutions. In the field of AI, we've actually been working, Jerome Chia and his team at the Design Center have been working really on a spectacular project. I'll not go into the details because it's proprietary, but this is with a local Singapore startup called Plunify. On the bottom, you actually see that we are not only engaging with startups in Singapore, but we've also started to use Singapore as a springboard for reaching into ASEAN and other parts of Asia. And finally, on the right side bottom, you see how we are engaging with Germany. So Germany is our corporate headquarters. It has a lot of R&D and operations functions for Infineon. We are also collaborating intensively with Germany. So much about how Infineon has progressed over the last 50 years, engaged around digitalization, and now plans to embark around artificial intelligence. But I think one of the aspects which we often forget, because all of us are so privileged and we were able to pivot on a dime, the moment COVID happened, we were able to switch to working from home, is that we also forget about something which is called the digital divide in our society. So Infineon is also very committed to helping bridge this digital divide, because without bridging this digital divide, you are not able to create opportunities for people to pick up those tools and enter into and develop that sort of flair for engineering and STEM careers, and then actually end up joining our semiconductor industry. So to that extent, Infineon recently donated 119 laptops to 2 charities, and this was extremely well received by the broader community. We hope to continue doing these kind of community outreaches as we go forward, because we believe we will be only as strong as the ecosystem itself in Singapore. Here's my last slide before I'll conclude and take questions. We at Infineon in Singapore are actually driven by something which we call our core beliefs. These are 3 value statements which we cherish and we live in our day-to-day life. The first is that cultural inclusiveness fosters talents. At Infineon Singapore, especially in our design center, we have, I think, close to dozens of nationalities of engineering as well as other talent working. And Singapore is a unique magnet for attracting cultural diversity. So we believe this is a competitive advantage, and this helps us nurture world-class talents out of our site in Singapore. The second is vibrant ecosystem nurtures innovation. As I explained earlier, for Infineon, it's not just innovating within, but also innovating with the ecosystem. So we are big proponents of open innovation, and we are engaged with startups, SMEs, and other companies in Singapore. And last but not the least, global connectivity spurs partnerships. So Singapore is at the crossroads indeed of Asia in terms of physical connectivity with the wonderful airport and the port here, but also in terms of increasingly digital connectivity. We are also home to the Singapore Arbitration Center. We are also home to a host of free trade agreements. So in all aspects, Singapore can be a unique location where we can drive a lot of things through global partnerships. And this actually then leads to further success for Infineon Singapore. So these are the 3 core beliefs, and our activities towards AI and digitalization are underpinned by these 3 core beliefs, which we are living on a day-to-day basis. So with that, I'll stop and I will take questions from the audience. Thank you very much. And thank you, SSIA.
Thank you, Rohit. So here comes a question from the audience. Could you elaborate more about virtual metro?
You mean virtual metro or metrology?
I think it's something, is the point that you have just mentioned in your presentation. The virtual metro.
Okay, so I think for the person who has asked this question on virtual metrology, it's a project which is running in our smart factory. And I will be happy to get back to that person with more details on that project. If he wants to know details about the metrology project.
Okay. So while we are waiting for some more questions to come in, may I ask a question here that we have? So when talking about like attracting talents to join the industry, actually as SSIA also feels the challenge in getting talents into this industry, because people may think that like semiconductor is a mature manufacturing industry. So in Infineon, what is your strategy to attract more talents, be it like young talents or the current talents into this industry?
Yeah, so actually we have a more holistic approach. Again, our design center colleagues as well as other function colleagues are working with talents at a very young age. So we have something called a CHIPS at School program. And this looks at school students even. and sort of, works with them and has interesting projects with them to sort of stimulate that interest in engineering and, science. So we start by sort of doing that. And that, I believe, is sort of important so that we begin to, inspire people so that they enter, the careers which are important for our industry to flourish. So our industry is totally built around talent, whether it's electrical engineering, electronics, computer science, industrial, and so on. So yes, we start young, but we also then do talent development programs in-house. We have talent development programs all the way from entry level to mid-career to leadership level. Also, some of our flagship programs have been developed and conceptualized in Singapore. That's for our own thing. We also, like I mentioned, in terms of open innovation, if there is certain talent outside the company, in a startup or in a SME, we are happy to partner with them. And very, very interesting and successful projects have happened between Infineon as well as these talents outside. So in all of the above, right, whether it is stimulating the ecosystem, working with the universities here, sponsoring joint projects like capstone projects, things like that, we are very, very engaged. I think with the polys, with the universities, with the business schools, we are present almost everywhere. And this we consider is extremely important, not only for Infineon, but also the rest of the industry.
Okay, when talking about talents, Don has a question about, are there mid-careers transitioning to semiconductor industry, I think? So any mid-career, they change the mid-career changes. Are you recruiting those into your company? I think the answer is yes, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Singapore is a multi-domain site for Infineon. It's the only site, perhaps outside of Germany, which has corporate functions, sales and marketing, distribution, operations, and of course, our only R&D center in Asia, which is focused on hardware development. So if you look at corporate functions, for instance, finance, treasury, accounting, controlling, strategy, where I come from, communications, legal and patents, all these are actually anchored out of Singapore. And for most of these functions, we do recruit people from different industries because these are more functionally driven departments. Right? So you need functional experts. So the answer is yes. Now, in terms of, for example, supply chain, yes, we have some people as well with a strong planning background from other functions. I think the only area where maybe is probably chip design, because I think for chip design, you cannot become a chip designer, perhaps. Maybe you can, but I think that is the only area which has, you require a lot of experience and a certain engineering, a very deep technical background. But I think other than that, there's lots of opportunities at Infineon, yeah, where we look outside as well.
Okay, and Terence is asking, which startups do you have now in the Infineon co-innovation space, and what kind of partnerships do you look into?
Okay, so at the moment, besides Plunify, which is this AI startup from Singapore, which we have a startup which is working on fuel cells for drones and for vehicles. It's called Spectronic. It's also a Singapore startup. By the way, all these startups are from Singapore. We have XALogic, which is a startup which is developing AI at the edge. We are in, we have another one called BabaTech, which is using technology to create a walking cane based on radar solution. So instead of having, the differently abled or disabled people actually using a physical cane, this creates a radar image and then creates a solution which is much better. So we have BabaTech over there. And actually, we are constantly engaged with the ecosystem. So we are talking to, I would say, at least 2 to 3 more startups. One which I forgot is called SoundEye. SoundEye, we just signed a contract last week. This is, again, a Singapore startup, which is using, again, AI, but on a sound basis. So it basically is able to take, for example, different sounds, and then it's able to detect whether this is an elderly person crying for help in the bathroom, somebody who's fallen down, and then, calls the civil defense or the emergency authorities automatically. So this is a startup which is, again, very interesting, working on audio. These are some of those, but besides this, we are working very, very closely with to solicit new startups all the time. So if you are in the areas of automotive, in consumer power, industrial power, or security or connectivity, do reach out to us. Happy to talk to you.
Sure. So seeing the time, we will take in the two last questions. One question is about how Infineon include the customer and supplier in the digitalization.
Yeah, so for customer, I already gave that example of, what we call the iSolar tool, where the customer requests are coming in and, our field application engineer who used to then sort of do more of a manual operation now has actually using a chatbot solution, right? So maybe in the future, we will sort of extend this forward to sort of include customers as well, right? On the supplier side, we are, for example, again, working in the smart factory with certain equipment supplier, I believe, so that we can automate what is called a visual inspection process. So you have packages going through the system and they have defects, and in the past, this whole operation of identifying was a little bit manual. Now we are working together with some partners as well as the equipment supplier to see if this whole thing can be, this whole visual inspection as well as, the entire database, if we can do machine learning on it and actually make this much faster. So that is one example, perhaps somebody who's also been working with us in the factory. So yes, we are working on both sides, customer and supplier. Want to do more? These are just some early examples.
Understand. So the last question will be, how active is Infineon now in attracting talent from abroad? So what are the main functions fulfilled by expats, means non-locals? Will you have that information?
Actually, I don't have that information off the top of my head. But we obviously believe in, this whole presentation was about working with the ecosystem in Singapore, building up that strong STEM attraction towards STEM graduates and so on. So obviously, we very strongly believe in developing the local ecosystem, engaging with it, and obviously building these talents and hiring from there and so on. Yeah, but I don't have exact numbers or the breakup.
Understand. So I think this is the end of Rohit's presentation. I can see that there are some still unanswered questions, but we will get back to you, Rohit, for the answers, and we will post it up in the LinkedIn. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of SSIA Summit 2020, and I would need your help